On South Africa's economic calendar this week is the government's midterm budget statement. Now, Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan will update his growth and fiscal projections today. Most analysts believe that Gordhan will reiterate his commitment to curbing government spending and narrowing the country's deficit, despite the upcoming election in April. We're now going to be crossing to Parliament, where Nompumelelo Siziba is standing by. Good morning, Nompu.
Good morning, Eben. How are you?
I'm very good, my dear. Very flashy building you're standing outside there. A little bit different from the studio here in Joburg, isn't it?
Well, a little bit indeed. Yes, this is our wonderful institution of Parliament. And at 2 o'clock Central African time, we expect the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, to give us his medium-term budget. He'll be telling us about government's priorities and the expenditure and revenue scenario over the next 3 years. I think the key focus for everyone right now, especially the markets, is what he's going to tell us about the budget deficit. Government for quite a few years now has been spending more than it receives in revenue, and that has meant that its tendency to borrow more on foreign debt markets has increased, and that's not a good thing. Apparently, we're one of the emerging markets with the most debt, and that's not a very good thing. But obviously, he'll be going through a slew of issues. Right now, what's topical is the employment tax initiative. COSATU has slammed it, and other unions have slammed it, saying that it may actually push out older workers, but government seems keen to press ahead with that particular initiative. I suspect that Pravin Gordhan will give us more detail about that. Eben.
Before we get into a little bit more detail around this, I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about the coverage today, how we're going to be dealing with this, because a lot of people are interested in it, but the speech only really happens later, and we'll be doing a whole host of stuff for the rest of the morning. Who will you be talking to? Are you inviting business, labour and the like to give some reaction or to set it up?
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Eben. Well, I'll be speaking to a couple of economists, Cape Town based, and I'll also be speaking to business and labour. We'll be speaking to COSATU. We'll also be speaking to Business Unity South Africa, possibly to the Black Business Council. So we do have quite a lot in terms of, expectations from what Pravin Gordhan will be telling the nation today, and then post the budget speech, we'll have further analysis on the actual speech and reaction again from Labour and business as to what's happened. You can catch me on channel 440 I forget our channel. 404. 404. You can catch me pretty much at 10:15, 11:15, 12:15, and then on SABC 3 we have the news at 1. There'll be several crossings to myself with guests where we talk further about today's events, and then at 2 p.m. I forget which channel that we're going to be putting out on. You'll tell the viewers that, but perfect. At 2 p.m. we'll have the broadcast of the actual budget speech. Immediately thereafter, we'll then obviously have a discussion, a post-budget analysis from my guests that are coming through.
Nompu, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the budget, the speech ahead of an election year. How is it expected to be different? There's talk about upping social spending. Some people are talking about this is normal. Others saying, no, this is buying votes before an election. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, Eben. I think many analysts are saying that Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan is between a rock and a hard place. Increasing spending right now on any priority is not a good idea. We are spending much more than we receive in revenues. Economic growth forecasts are that South Africa is going to be slowing down. Previously, the expectation was that we were going to grow at 2.7% this year. Now the expectation is 2%. Revenues are under pressure, and the SARS actually put out a report telling us, or Statistics SA, pardon me, put out a report saying that the revenue streams are under serious pressure. So if Pravin Gordhan does decide to spend more, he'd need to really have good justification for it, because the emphasis is actually on him cutting spending. Next year, we're going to have a situation in July where public servants or public service workers will be renewing their wage demands, because they do a 3-yearly wage demand thing. So inflation is standing at around above 6%, which is above the Reserve Bank's target range of 3 to 6%. And if the trend continues, we expect inflation to go up further. And if that's the case, obviously public sector workers will be asking for a higher increment. Now, Pravin Gordhan will have to fight long and hard to ensure that the increment is not too high. Otherwise, government spending is going to go way out the window. Already, government spends about 35% of its whole spend just on public sector wages.
One more thing I wanted to ask you. We've had such a tumultuous year of strikes across all sectors, real extended strike season for lack of better English. Will we see or get a sense today how this has affected the economy, and for the man in the street, will it sort of decode what the effects of this will be to their pockets?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the strikes will have definitely had an impact on South Africa, on its growth, because there was a lack of production. People didn't have wages. They were not going out and spending in retail outlets. Definitely an impact. Hopefully we'll get some sort of quantum from the finance minister as to what sort of impact this has had. But yeah, I think that all of this it doesn't bode well for our economic growth prospects, and we just need to find out from him, from a policy perspective, what government can do to try and kind of sort out this strike business, bring it into a sort of balance whereby we don't have strikes every month, because internationally as well, we rely on foreign direct investors. It doesn't bode well for us. We know that BMW said that they're not going to invest further in South Africa, but on the other hand, Volvo and Mercedes-Benz have said that they're going to invest further. So people have a different perspective on South Africa, but the more that we can kind of control what happens in the country on the positive side, then obviously that's going to be good for the country.
Nompu, just a parting shot. I want you to tell us, how is today different from other big days at Parliament? How is today different, for instance, from the opening? Is it as glitzy? Do we have as many people there? Or is this a little bit more of a low-key affair?
I think that the February budget, which basically tells us about the one particular fiscal year. So, for example, 6 months ago when Pravin Gordhan gave his February speech, it was for this fiscal year, 2013 to 2014. There's a lot of hype and drama around that. There's a lot of attendance. I think the medium-term budget is seen as a little bit more low-key, but I don't think it's any less important, because government is telling us what it plans to do over the next 3 to 5 years, and that's pretty significant. And it means that they're really having to use a serious crystal ball, because they have to guess what growth is going to be doing. They have to guess what the international global environment is going to be doing in order to be able to plan, ahead and achieve the things that they need to do. So now what the midterm budget will do is that we'll possibly see some adjustments in terms of revenue expectation and expenditure, because what's happening now is very different to what was happening in February. In February, Pravin Gordhan couldn't have foreseen that we were going to have the kind of strike action that we've had in the recent past. So yeah, we're going to see some adjustments. We may hear some policy statements that this is a platform for him to use to be able to announce any new policy statements. But like you mentioned earlier, because it's elections around the corner, it's a very difficult position that he's in. He's not only the finance minister, he is a politician. He represents the ANC government, and obviously they want to ensure that they don't upset the vast majority of the electorate.
That was a mouthful, Nompu. Thank you for that contribution.
I can talk. talk. I can talk.
I know you can. We know that. Nompu's normally in Joburg, and she's gone down to Cape Town, especially for this midterm budget broadcast today. Thank you for your contribution, and we look forward to having you on all the other shows for the rest of the day. Hard working she will be for the rest of the day, giving you the juice on what is happening with our budget outlook for the next couple of years, of course.